Hi, Praveena. Thank you so much for helping my project. Could you say a little bit about yourself?
Yes, Nathan, thank you for inviting me. This is really exciting. So my name is Praveena Hook. I work within the an HR organization at DocuSign now. I am based in Minneapolis, and I actually have known you for, gosh, I want to say 6, 7 years, right? On and off, whether as a colleague or supported you in recruiting as my hiring manager. So thank you again for inviting me to this.
I really appreciate it. I'm planning to interview a person a day to the end of 2024. So I need like 1,146 more people.
I have questions around that because being a recruiter, I'm constantly thinking, where are you getting all these prospects from, right? That is a lot of people.
I've definitely bugged a lot of people, but I only interview everybody once, so it's like, why don't you get it over with, and then I won't bug you anymore. Of course, that's not entirely true because then whenever I can't find people, I'm like, do you know anybody?
Yeah. And it is who you know for sure. I know in my industry, right? When you're recruiting, it's really about your network. It's really about going out there and getting yourself out there and talking with people. And I often find that people are willing to help. It's just a matter of getting them at the right time, right? Because often I know you and I have been trying to get this date for a couple of months now, but it's really, I think, a matter of time. But people are more than willing to help. And especially on something, on a topic like this, where it's so intriguing, right?
It is, but we're constantly being bombarded by scammers and advertisers. So it's
Mm.
really difficult to approach somebody and to kind of make it through that filter.
Yeah.
You know, why else would somebody like me be talking to people other than to get them to
That
change
is so
their
right.
their phone plan or to try to get some personal identifiable information to do
I
something,
love it. I love
so but if you have any advice on that, that would be good. How can I get through, you know um yeah.
I absolutely think the networking piece is the most crucial, right? Because once you speak with someone like you and I mean, we have that relationship, trust, and credibility. So from here, I can then reach out to my people who may be interested, things like that, because that's how really you develop the network, essentially. Don't you agree, Nathan? Where you build that trust, that credibility, you start talking with people, and you and I talk with so many people in a day that unless they are aware of what is going on, what you're doing, it's really no other way, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's and people have been very open and helpful,
Mhm.
even on the streets. I've gone up to people at Starbucks and just waiting outside for a store to open, and I'm like, hey, it looks like you have time to kill. Let me tell you about my project.
No way. I love it.
Yeah. And yeah, so that's been good. But yeah, so what got you into recruiting?
I will tell you this. I can assure you that if you ask this question to every recruiter, they will tell you, I just stumbled into it. Nobody really goes to school and decides, oh, when I grow up, I want to be a recruiter, right? So I actually have a science background, Nathan. I have a degree in environmental science, essentially. It's called environmental health. So it's like microbiology, infectious diseases and all of that. And then I realized that, well, career path-wise, more likely it's either going to be in a lab or doing like health inspections at restaurants type of thing, right? So I thought, well, microbes don't speak, don't talk back to me. And I love this, I love to be able to talk with people. So I went to do HR because I was working at this hotel when I was like 18 and 19 in a restaurant. And the HR manager there was just like the sweetest, so nice, so sharp and intelligent. I just looked up to her as like, okay, I want to be that. You know, at 18, you have no idea, right? So I went into HR thinking, oh, okay, I still didn't know what HR was at that time, right? Um, and then got my first job in HR, in agency recruiting, and it was so cutthroat and really salesy and what have you. But what I learned from that was I love the ability to find that next opportunity for someone, because I had been a candidate myself, right? I know that experience. I know that joy of finding that wonderful opportunity, that next role for myself. And that had been my really, you know, what I strive to do, to find that next career path for that person, and that joy, that excitement. And it's often really life-changing. You know, I mean, you and I know each other for many years at Anaplan, where I love that. I've built so many great relationships professionally and personally, just from my hires who then become hiring managers. And this is this whole cycle, right? Um, that's how I got into recruiting. That's how I've been a career recruiter. And that's what I find the typical answer that you'll find in any career recruiters.
It just kind of fell into it.
Fall into it, not really knowing what it's all about, you know? And my parents, I will tell you this, are not in the corporate world. They were not, they're retired now. So it's very confusing to them about the whole, you know, telling them what I do for work, right? Because they're like, what do you mean? We used to just turn up at a place, fill out a piece of paper, talk to the manager and get the job, you know? Whereas this whole corporate recruiting aspect is very intriguing to them. They still, I don't think they truly understand what I do for work still today. Yeah.
That's interesting. Well, you can imagine how much fun I have trying to explain to my parents what I do.
Yeah. It's like, oh, he's in IT. That's it.
Yeah, but that's not a good answer either, because then they wonder why you can't fix their computer problems.
Yeah, it's like, how do I turn this Mac on, Nathan? Right? Like,
Well,
what's the
can you
problem?
open up your model for me? Then I can help you.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then even model too. I mean, unless you're in the Anaplan world, people are like, model, what are you talking about?
I
Like,
know it's such an overloaded word. Whenever I hear the word model, I'm thinking about some type of 3D visualization that you can
really?
move around
Right.
and stuff.
And I'm sure if you're in Starbucks, you start talking about, oh yeah, I support people and I can model. People like, you mean like modeling, like on the catwalk, you know?
Yeah, exactly. There's that definition too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or maybe making miniature cars or whatever.
Yes, right. Right.
Uh,
That is funny.
it is. Um, so how much do you follow the space program?
I do not. And well, here's what a fun fact about me. Okay. Growing up, there were two things that I wanted to be when I grew up. One was a CNN anchor reporter, because even back in Thailand and in Australia when I grew up, CNN globally has, you know, they always were so pretty, intelligent and articulate. So I looked at that on the screen and I thought, oh, I want to be that. And then I also wanted to work at NASA, not to go up in the air because I have a fear of height issue, but it's just so that deeply ingrained nerd in me has always been interested, right, in general. So I follow it in that regard. I have a 10-year-old son who's in the gifted program at school, who comes home and tells me all of these updates, right? So he and I really get geeked out, and he tells me about all of these robots and programs and all of that. So I get my knowledge from that. In fact, I got that 2024 timeline from him, and then of course started to Google it with him and then I actually have a friend. Do you know Tiffany Morales,
I
who
do.
is a recruiter lead? another plan. So she lives in Florida. Her backyard actually, I mean, she had streamed live for us to watch the rockets go up. I don't know what they call it, right? Like, so all of that has really prompted my interest more in more recent time, because I'm always like messaging Tiff about, oh, you know, what's going on? She'll post on her Facebook, you know, all of this stuff, things like that. But really haven't been following it. I'm sure like you have been, right? But to me, it's just been like, oh, wow, this is happening. How intriguing, things like that.
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of people, like about 700 so far people right now, and the range of responses have been kind of interesting. Some people thought the entire space program was shut down. Some people thought, NASA's being secretive. Some people thought, you know, that we've always been going to the moon. It's been another thing, but it's kind of interesting. There's definitely a lot of
Ah,
misconceptions out there about
yeah.
our maybe misconceptions. How about different conceptions? I don't want to.
Well, and then you add on the SpaceX, right? Which to me is just like, that to me is just mind blowing, because I'm like, okay, that is so exciting, intriguing, but also really creepy in my perspective, because I don't know, about a few months ago when they did the whole, I don't even know what they call it, Nathan, and we went out and looked, and the stream of lights that was going past our house, um, that was like the coolest thing, but also the most creepy thing, because you sort of go, oh my gosh, this is happening, in our lifetime more than anything. Because to me, I look at it as like, this is the Jetsons type of thing. Growing up, you sort of go, okay, this is so far away, but in our lifetime, this is actually happening.
Yeah, and I think you're talking about the Starlink satellites that they're putting up. They
That's
put up,
right. Yep. Mhm.
and which it's going to provide high-speed internet access regardless if you live in a big city like Minneapolis or live out in the middle of nowhere. You could be just as connected.
Like, how creepy is that, Nathan, to be able to do that, right?
But also very empowering too, So now if you
Sure.
live in, the middle of Africa and you have no internet service provider, or you have
Yeah.
very slow bandwidth, now you can be on the same level as people living in Tokyo and London and wherever.
Yeah. Incredible.
Hmm. A lot of people to recruit, a lot more.
I should go and work for NASA actually now. It's like job security, right? I have a girlfriend from high school from Australia who actually doesn't anymore, but she used to be a contractor with NASA. And she would do, she was an analyst for like their weather station. I don't know if it's a weather station or what, anyway, but the way I understand her job there was really analyzing the weather trends, right? And really how that will impact, should this happen? What do we do? That to me, I mean, I could talk with her all day about this and just really geek out over it. Whereas I couldn't do the job. It's too analytical, too numbers driven, and what if situations and all of that. That is not me. But to sit and listen to that, like I can do that all day, It's so interesting to me.
It is, and weather is such a big important part in all of our lives. From just, do you carry the umbrella? Do you not? Do you not go out? Or but it's even more important for like launches and landing, where it could be catastrophic if you get it wrong.
Incredible.
So you mentioned your 10-year-old son comes home and talks to you about all the exciting things.
Yeah.
Anything in particular sticks out in your mind that he said recently?
Oh my gosh. All of these robots, I forget their names. They all have like really cool names. Um, I can't remember at the top of my head, but the ones that they like leave there and it has a camera and it monitors the rovers, I guess they're called, right?
Oh, you're talking about the Perseverance rover that was sent to Mars, that type of thing?
Yes.
Okay.
You know
And
what
that
I'm
they
talking
even has
about?
like a little helicopter that they're
Yes.
flying.
They have cool names like Perseverance or, these, you know what I'm talking about, Nathan? Um, so oftentimes he'll come and say, oh, such and such, they'll say Perseverance landed successfully, or, they retrieved such and such like successfully. It's like, oh, okay, So he is like my, space information update guy.
That's amazing. I imagine he always keeps you on your toes.
Oh yeah. Yep. And he'll come to me, on the day off. I mean, he was the one that told me about the space thing that we were just talking about. You see how I have like zero knowledge, right? I'm just getting all this information from my 10-year-old who comes home and blah blah, these names, like long names, and this happens. And did you know? And then of course I'm like secretly Googling, and he has all the correct information because I'm thinking to myself, like, yeah, I don't know if that happened. And then of course I Google it and it's all true.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah, I mean, that's such a wonderful age when you're just exploring all the possibilities and you're excited
Yes.
about the world and
Yes. Yeah. And he'll come home and says, actually, the most recent one, he was telling me that he wants to go to Arkansas to sift for gold or diamond. I forgot. I don't know. So, and I didn't know this until he told me that there are many sites, and there's a particular, I don't know, a national park of some sort that is really popular. And most recently, in the past month or two, a person actually found this giant diamond or rock of some sort. So now he wants to go there on a vacation. And you can imagine me, Nathan, okay? Like when I think of vacation, I'm thinking ocean, nice scenery, not Arkansas, not like go and look for these rocks, right? So, I mean, without trying to disappoint him, I'm like, yeah, we can look into that.
is it the Carlsbad Caverns or something like that?
That sounds right. I mean, there's so many sites, but it's the one that the woman recently found this giant rock, right? Where he's like now all enthused that it's possible. So yeah, I'll keep you posted if I ever go to Arkansas to look for rocks.
So you said that he's the one that told you about the 2024 kind of timeline of landing on the
Yes.
moon. And then yesterday, I guess perhaps he gave you an update that they're planning to move it out a year, that it'll probably
He
be 2025.
hasn't. He hasn't. I may need to like nudge him a little bit, or maybe it'll be coming today, right? I did not know this. And it is interesting because I have been thinking about, well, with all these logistic slow down, everyone, and without speaking loudly, I have been trying to get a PS5 for my husband for 2 years.
Oh, wow.
And I have been, following these Twitter people who gives updates on releases and so forth, and my son being, the type of person he is, we have a GameStop account where they send an update where they'll be like, okay, members, we'll have, a new shipment in today at 10 a.m. And then of course I'm always in meetings, so I never get a chance to log in and purchase. But why I mention it is parts, right? So behind, and with COVID and what have you, manufacturing and so forth. So I have been thinking about this, where how is NASA going to get all these parts, or are they like the mafia where they will find, things, right? Resources. So I wonder if that had anything to do with the delay. Do you know, Nathan?
They haven't mentioned that. They did mention COVID-19, of course. And then part of landing on the moon requires actually having something that the astronauts can go from lunar orbit onto the moon surface, which NASA, instead of building and designing that lander themselves, actually had a set of companies compete to design and build it, one of which was Blue Origin and their national team, and SpaceX, as well as Dianetics. Um, uh, SpaceX won the bid, and Blue Origin lost. And so Blue Origin's been suing
Wow.
NASA and kind of objecting to it. But just recently, like in the past week, you know, the kind of like the final verdict had been released saying that NASA's awarding of the contract to SpaceX was good, but that kind of delayed things by 6 months there as
I
well.
see.
And then on top of
Ah,
that, NASA historically has not been good with timelines. So, yeah.
I mean, that was an aggressive timeline, right? I mean, even though back then when they launched it, I'm sure they were like, we have 5 years or whatever it is. But then when you think about 2024, that's literally, to me, almost next year, right? Because I don't even know what year it is. I mean, the last 2 years have been such a blur. But I'm also wondering, like, excuse me, it's less than 3 weeks until before Thanksgiving, and I am not ready, right? And you know what it's like, Thanksgiving dinner happens, and then you're planning for Christmas, and then really it's the year's gone. So to me, I wonder the same, that, well, where are they at? Are they really timeline wise? That seems really aggressive, you know?
They're supposed to be doing an uncrewed flight around the moon next year in February. And then in 2024, a crewed flight that I have 4 people, one of which should be a Canadian astronaut. It'd be the first time that a Canadian has been, out that far. So that's kind of
Wow.
interesting. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, the interesting, you mentioned the moon. My son, of course, my space information person, and he was telling me that, was it 2 days ago, Nathan, where the moon and Venus, I think,
Hmm.
right? And we looked out and I could not believe, because I was like, wait a minute, I would never have noticed. It was just so beautiful. It's just something that, living in a small big city like Minneapolis, you don't really see that, right? You look up and it's pitch black. There's never any stars up there. So it was really fun to see,
Yeah, it's very bright, very bright.
Beautiful. Yeah.
So how do you feel about us going back to the moon?
I'm actually really excited about it, to think that this is becoming, I don't want to say the norm, but it's a possibility. That most likely, I wouldn't be surprised in our lifetime, Nathan, that it would be more of a norm. And what I mean by that is, if you think about, maybe in our grandparents' generation, flying across the country was not something that was the norm, right? And to think about, they went through the whole Concorde thing, they're now going through this whole, I mean, I look at it as, if you were to ask me this 20 years ago, I'd be like, impossible. Come on, that is not real. It's all the Jetson stuff. But with the way technology is going, with the way that we as humans have been so advanced when it comes to findings, education, and all of this, it's not surprising. It wouldn't be surprising to me that maybe you and I in 20 years could be buying tickets to go to the moon, So that is more of a reality to me than what it was 20 years ago.
Now, talking about that and your previous comment about being afraid of heights, if it was safe and affordable, would you go to space?
I would. I
You,
would. It's just like flying, like, secret for you. Every time I fly, and you may know that my family and I travel extensively, every time, and I never tell anyone this, that
Well, this
I
is being recorded and will be published
the
on
whole everyone will
Countdown.
know now, but don't
Everyone will
tell
know about it now.
right, don't tell my husband anyway, because every time I fly, I have a plan like, okay, we're gonna crash. Like I just assume we're gonna crash, right? And what am I gonna do? Like I never listen to, the safety thing because you know what I mean? But I always look at, okay, exit. If I'm flying with a child, who am I sitting with? What am I gonna do? Where's my, like I have a plan in my head because every flight, I'm like, okay, we're gonna crash. But I still fly. Like there's no fear of flying, but my assumption is we're going to crash. So your question about that is yes, if it's affordable to me, I would for the experience, but I may be sitting there sweating, but yeah, absolutely I would.
That's pretty awesome. Well, those are pretty much the questions I had. Did you have any questions or anything you wanted to add?
No, I do not. This is really intriguing, and I feel like we can talk for much longer, right? There's a lot of really so many questions, like how, not questions to you, but question more to NASA more than anything. It's like, how are humans coming up with these ideas, incredible thoughts of, if we do this, this will happen, right? Kind of like the questions to my high school girlfriend where, wait a minute, what do you mean? If this happens in the, I don't know, in the environment, this could potentially happen up in the, all of that. I mean, that's just way beyond my knowledge. Um, so when I talk with you, Nathan, about when I grew up, I wanted to work for CNN or NASA. I am living this life through my son, and I'm deeply hopeful that he will end up working with NASA. So I'll keep you posted, okay? That's my hope for him. Not that I like share that with him, but secretly I am hopeful.
And there's so many aerospace jobs, like the aerospace industry right now feels like something similar to what you saw in the 1990s with the internet. So
It's incredible. But thank you for having me. This has been really enjoyable, Nathan.
thank you so much, Pravina, and you have a good rest of your day. And I hope we get to meet again on one of my visits to
Yeah.
Minneapolis.
Oh, yes. Let me know when you're in town, okay? That's
Absolutely.
good. Thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye.
Bye bye.